What up, nerds? This is Ghoulie with another PvP talent video. This is the Ghoul Spec that I'm calling that on purpose. Mainly because the idea is that you have a lot of ghoul moves, and using that as your burst is the whole point. 8.1 came out, and there wasn't too many changes, but there were some noticeable ones. One, Frost still sucks. Frost is a little bit better than it was. Unholy is still pretty good, and it's better than it was. And your survivability through transfusion is going to be the make or break moment for a lot of your fights that you get into. Getting more death strikes out for cheaper is huge. Necrotic Strike is what's going to keep Unholy over Frost forever, for as long as this move exists. And Raise Abomination is actually pretty cool, especially if you can get somebody that's melee intensive or somebody that's attacking you, to get them to sit in that Abomination circle. Everything else for the most is the same, except that I've moved Unholy Frenzy over to Army of the Damned, because I want to get more of these Abominations out and more Apocalypses out, because that's the whole point of this kind of strategy. So I've done a lot of comparisons between a bunch of different Unholy specs. This is the one that I've settled on as being the best damage one, and it's still better damage than Frost, which is crazy. While I go through the rotation, I'm not going to have really time to look over at the damage done meter, so you can do that to kind of see where the DPS spike happens. Maybe it's better than Frost. I don't think it's going to be any better than Breath Frost, but it's still pretty decent, and you'll feel it. Whenever we go through this spec, it's kind of the same as what we might be used to if we've played Unholy before. It's just before you get into going through your rotation with your Scourge Strikes or Necrotic Strike, depending on if you're fighting a person or not, you want to get your ghouls out, and getting those out and keeping those on cooldown is going to be what our objective is as we go through the rotation. And if we do it right, that kind of damage from all those ghouls, especially if you couple it with a last surprise or more than one last surprise, it's going to be great. I don't have great gear, 365, kind of middle of the road. If you have better gear than that right now, then that means that you raid or you PvP pretty hard, and that means that you're probably better than me. But yeah, and that's it. So if you have this kind of gear, then you should be kind of expecting the same kind of damage. So I'm going to go through this. The ghoul's not on passive, and it's kind of the same. So Death and Decay and Outbreak, and then Festering Strike, ghouls. At that point I'll use the trinkets, which will be Lion's Strength. That's going to be my timer, so I'm going to do 2 minutes worth of work here. And then once that's done, it's really just monitoring the outbreak, monitoring all the cooldowns here, and then blowing off Festering Strikes to make sure that I don't cap out on Festering Wounds or Runic Power. So the more Death Coils that I use, the more time it's going to reduce on A-Bomb and APOC, which most people might not know, because the tooltip only says Army of the Dead for 5 seconds. So it's prorated. It's not 5-second drops on the time remaining. It's just it's a second speed up. So that's awesome, and I appreciate that happened. Maybe it's a bug and it'll get nerfed. But a lot of people, when they fight a Death Knight, they may not be expecting an Abomination. And this seems to be limited to the circle, so if they run outside the circle like Death and Decay, then it's no longer effective. But this guy goes around and does quite a bit of damage of whoever's in that circle. So it's kind of like a Demon Hunter. If you can get people to fight you in this circle, then you're going to gain the most benefit out of that Abomination. So rolling into it, so Death and Decay, Outbreak, Festering Strikes into the ghouls, and then cooldowns, and just basically dumping Festering Wounds and Death Coils. So that's pretty much it, and you kind of watch it. So pay attention to the meter over here. Maybe I get over 15k, maybe I won't. But no matter what happens, no matter what I do, the damage is going to be better than any Frost spec you can think of in a 2-minute window of damage. So, let's do it. Death and Decay, Outbreak, Festering Strike. Gonna get the A-Bomb out there. Gonna do another Festering Strike before the Apocalypse because I didn't have 4. Now I'm back up to 6 cooldowns. Gotta get those death coils out ASAP because the spec is dependent on it. Outbreak because it expired. And try to keep the festering wounds down. If you find yourself rune starved, use your Soul Reaper. But you don't want to use your Soul Reaper too early, especially if you have like 3 seconds or less on a rune regen, because you're going to need it. So right now I have 1 minute and 10 seconds left on the 2-minute timer. I'm going to use the Soul Reaper because I'm going to need to get Festering Strikes out. I got a Dark Trans coming up. Transform the Ghoul. Back to dumping Festering Wounds. Reset the Death and Decay and Outbreak. I have 6 Festering Wounds, so it's back on that. I got an Abomination coming up. I don't need anything to get that out. Then I got another Apocalypse, get that out too. And I have 30 seconds left on the Trinket. So with all that stuff out there, it's going to start rising. Get that out, because keep Death and Decay on cooldown. Soul Reaper to get some runes, because I want to make sure that I can get those Festering Strikes done. There's just, with this, there's so much you can do in this short bit of time. So 3, 2, 1, and then I'll pull off. So 1.5 million damage in 2 minutes, kind of like a sustained 12k DPS. To look at it as far as what the ghouls contributed to it, your Abomination is either going to be above or below your own melee. So in this one fight, I out damaged the Abomination, but you can see how much melee damage that Abomination is doing. Then your Ghoul damage, Festering Wounds, blowing up, your Plague expiring, or your Plague actually dealing damage over time, Death Coils, normal physical attacks, Festering Strikes attacks, your Eruption of your disease, and melee from your Army of the Dead. So that for the most part, plus the Hell Chain's pretty solid right now, mainly because we're keeping all that on cooldown. And what you'll notice that there's really not too long cooldowns here, so it's something that we can use frequently. Like your Abomination at max is 1.5 minutes, your Apocalypse is 1.5 minutes, but every time you use Death Coil, it drops a second faster than it would. And Dark Trans is 1 minute. So your ghouls you can have out there potentially every minute to every minute and 20 seconds, just in the middle of just pure chaos. And that's basically the spec. So just to slowly go through it, take the Ghoul off passive. Death and Decay, Outbreak, Festering Strike, Festering Strike. I have 5, 6 there now, so put the A-Bomb out, Apocalypse, Dark Trans, Trinket, blow your runic power down with Death Coil, and then at this point just make sure that you keep either your runic power down or your Festering Wounds down, because your Death and Decay and the Abomination is generating that. So reset the Outbreak, Death and Decay back down, and back to it. So if you just go basically back and forth, at this time it's very easy to move around at the same time and do this whole rotation. Once it resets, we'll go through it. So I'm just kind of using left and right strafe and going through. And it's really not affected too much by my own movement, which is cool. and just me using the mouse to move forward if you're chasing is you can go through the whole thing on your keyboard while you're just chasing them down. So had some pretty good success with this so far, and that's basically the specs. I go through it. Infected Claws, Ebon Fever, Asphyxiate. These aren't too different from what we had already. Pestilence still had that. Army of the Damned is really the only difference in the spec, plus your Raise Abomination, and you'll get some pretty good damage out of it. So come back to the channel. I'll probably make a greater attempt at recording PvP this time. But so far so good from what I've seen, and it's been a lot more fun than it was before, especially when you start talking about transfusion and staying alive, because your death strikes healing you for more, and you're also getting more death strikes should you need it every 45 seconds. So to kind of put it in perspective, I'm not taking damage, so it's not going to be maxed out, but I got 16k heal right there. Just gonna try to build up runic power again. So if you have, fuck that up. If you have max runic power, let's just kind of see how many we can get. I've never actually looked. I think it uses like 12. So we'd be looking at like 17 runic power per death strike. So transfusion, death strike, death strike. So I got 5. You'll get 5 death strikes out of that. Let's see how many more we can get. So you can get potentially 6 or 7 if you're taking damage or gaining runic power some other way. Throughout that transfusion, you can get 7 death strikes out of it, which is great. And that's pretty much it for this video. If you have any more questions, definitely post something in the comments and I'll try to get to it. If there's something better out there that I just haven't figured out yet or got to, let's see if somebody wants to duel. Doubt it. Let's duel this mage. This guy? Ooh, another Death Knight. What's he got? Let's see if I can work this Death Knight. This will be the ultimate test without cutting. Alright. He's got the same transmog as me. This guy is literally me. It's a Death Knight, so I'm gonna have to use it. Oh, he Ghoul Spec. That's illegal in duels. Fuck, what's he using? Fuck! Okay, that wasn't too bad, and if I lasted a little bit longer, I would have had transfusion for more Death Knights, or Death Strikes. That was pretty good. So, for that, let's see what I had. So, Plague was doing a hell of a lot of damage, too. That wasn't bad. Let's see what he's got. 370. Oh, shit. Oh. Hey, that's not bad. Let me try to get. Because if he's got gear like that, and that's how close I got, if he had the ghouls and was doing the same kind of stuff I was, he would have fucking worked me. Yeah, I'll do a monk. For sure. Who starts with that? Gonna have to trinket. Fuck that. Waiting for that fucking karma. I had to. Sorry. Not bad. Good duel. Good duel. Yeah, my DPS shit. Alright, so this isn't going to be all about duels, but yeah, you can see, like, I really want to fuck this warrior up. I for the last decade, I have been shitting on warriors. I want to play. Oh, this guy's got some fucking gear too. Alright, so when I'm making this video, I don't have the greatest gear. Oh, he's got it. I didn't see. Did he not use that before? I didn't see if he used that before. Alright, so yeah, that's the end of this video. Please come back for more. Comment if you liked what you saw. Take it easy.